My full name is Dr. M. Satish Kumar. I was born in Shillong in the northeast of India. It used to be the capital of Assam, where you get the Assam tea from, but now it's a different state. And I came to United Kingdom on 1997, and then I was there for 2 years teaching in Cambridge before coming to Belfast at the end of 1999. And I've been here more than 14 years now.
Right.
The place I grew up is in the northeast of India, as I said, Shillong, which used to be the summer capital for British in Calcutta during the 18th and 19th century. The place where you had the first oil wells dug by the East India Company, and the place which was known for tea, Assam tea. The region was also known as Scotland of East. The reason why it was known as Scotland of East was that when the East India Company came to India, they discovered a place which was very close to home. It was known as a mini Scotland. The first Welsh Mission Hospital was established in 1878. The first road link was made between the plains and the hill stations. The sanatorium was established there. A lot of the plants that we see in Kew Gardens also came from that part of the world, and it provided resources, ideas right across. So that region was also known as Scotland of East because of the tremendous link between the different groups of the United Kingdom from Scotland, Ireland, Wales, the Welsh Calvinist, the Irish Christian Brothers, American Baptists, you name it, 99% of the population are Christian there.
And could you tell me why you came to the UK?
I came to the UK primarily in the first stage in 1987 to do a pre-PhD program in the University of Sussex on gender development. I finished that program. I went back to India to do my PhD. I finished my PhD and also got a job as an assistant professor in Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU in New Delhi. After working for 9 years there, I wanted a break to do my research. So I applied for a Commonwealth Fellowship. I received a Commonwealth Foundation and Commonwealth Fellowship to come to Cambridge. I was a Commonwealth Fellow in Cambridge for a year, and then I competed for a college fellowship. I became a Fellow of the Fitzwilliam College and also got a joint appointment in this Department of Geography and Land Economy in University of Cambridge, and I taught there for 2 years. And went back to India, and there was an opportunity in Queen's University at that time. My first question is it something to do with India? That's what I'm interested. And they said there's a person who was a specialist on India. He has the single largest, he held the single largest private collection on India, and books on India. A man called Professor Bill Kirk. William Kirk died before I came, just after he retired. He was a Pro-Vice Chancellor in Queen's. He had incredible links with India right through the war period. Having served in Burma and in India, preparing maps for the RAF, he lived in Delhi. He spent almost all his summers and winters taking trips and expeditions to India, working on Indian themes and projects. And so he was my major attraction. And that's how I landed up in Queen's when I got the job formally.
Did you come alone, or did you come with anyone else?
I came alone.
Okay. And was it a tough decision to
No.
move to Belfast? No. Okay. And what was it like when you first moved here?
When I first decided to come for the interview, my friends in Cambridge said, why go to Belfast? That place is full of bombs. When I told my friends in America, they said, Satish, why are you wasting your time going to Belfast? You should come to America. When I spoke to my colleagues in India, my friends, they said, well, you spent 24 odd years in Delhi. Why are you wasting all the network that you built up to come to a place where no one knows anything? There are always bombs going off. And I said, well, I came from India, in Delhi at that time, when the earlier problems of Al-Qaeda started in Delhi and India, almost 10, 20 years before it happened here in the West. We faced all that issue, so I was quite used to the security and everything else. And having come from the northeast of India, which is also known as bandit country, I was quite used to the idea of security and security checks and being almost alert all the time. So it was no big deal. I had this particular perception that There are different places, even in the most so-called safe cities. There are areas where you wouldn't venture. There are places in Delhi where you wouldn't venture. And if you are careful about it, every city is safe, as long as you don't go looking for trouble. So when I came to Belfast, yes, people were surprised why I did. But I thought it was a good challenge because I felt it more friendly, homely. Having spent time in Cambridge and London, I thought this is a city where it's a small community and it's a place where you can do pioneering work. So building relationships was my expertise, and that's what I did.
So you say it's a friendly place. Would you say the people welcomed you here?
Yes, in fact, my first encounter was in Errigal pub in Ormer Road. Having gone there for the first time, I was living in Hampton Court, and I went up to the Errigal. People said, "Oh, my colleague said, go to Errigal, you can have a pint of Guinness." And I've always taken Guinness in a bottle, so I had no idea what it felt like in a draft, and I wanted to try something out. So I went down to Errigal. I sat down with my drink. I knew nobody at that time. And this bloke who also was buying a drink came up and said, "Do you mind if I sit with you?" And I said, "No." So he sat down with me, and he asked me where I was from. I was talking to him and my experience, and he had a book in his hand. He said, "Have you seen this book?" And I looked at the cover and I said, "Yeah, the Victorian Holocaust." I said, "Yes." He says, "Have you read it?" And I said, "No, I've seen it, only looked at the first introduction in one of the shops in Cambridge." With my family, because my father was, as I said, I was born and brought up in the northeast of India. So traditional rice and curry and chapatis and things like that. But having lived in Delhi, it's a North Indian culture, so it's very different. My roots are from northern Kerala. So Kerala is again a very different in terms of food and language and culture. So southern India is very different from northern India. And I was born in the northeast, which is very, very different. So I have three cultures all combined and encapsulated in my own identity. So I would speak as I move, and I would always say that I'm more Indian than most Indians are.
And would you notice a difference between the sorts of professions that people would be going into from the old immigrants to the newer?
Huge difference. Predominantly because you'll find that the majority of the new immigrants are in the IT sector. They come in working for BT and other telecom and call centers and others. ICICI, First Source, Polaris, these are big companies which are bringing people in. So that is a huge demographic, that's a huge profile change. When I first took the flight from Stansted Airport in Cambridge to come to Belfast, I was the only Indian in that flight. In 3 years' time, after the peace process, 2003-04, I found that in the flight I was again taking a trip back from Cambridge. Majority of them were Indians and others, except very few Irish.
Yeah.
So that's a huge shift. In Queens itself, when I first came, there were a very handful of people who were academic of Indian origin. Today there are many more who have been appointed in the department. Not huge, but you'll find one in every department. So again, that's a shift taking place quite significantly. Will it be sustainable? It depends on how the universities, higher education policies work to retain them, because they come from a tremendous skill background, tremendous space. They're always looking for an opportunity to move and to contribute. I'm not sure everyone would have the same approach that I have, but yeah.
Would you feel that these new immigrants are reflecting the changing India?
Big way.
Yeah.
Big way, because they have high stakes. Some of them are willing to work in different places, and they're constantly on the move. There's a sort of a frenetic energy associated with that cohort of population. They're always on the move. They always want to get something done. They want to improve themselves continuously. I always use this adage that India's economic growth has been phenomenal until the downturn with the economic crisis globally. And one of the questions is that why is it so that it has been phenomenal with more than 5% rate of growth, while most European nations in the Anglo-Saxon world is struggling with under 2%. It's because I always use this as an example that when a lion is hungry, he'll grab anything that comes. When you're fully satiated and had your belly full, you go to sleep, no problem, it won't touch you. So I think India is a hungry country. So the diaspora that's moving out, the migrants that are moving out, are constantly on the lookout for improving themselves.
Do you think these new migrants could benefit Northern Ireland?
In a huge way, because they bring a different set of energy and also different sets of experience. And I think Northern Ireland, to be truly a global city, would need to have that cosmopolitan approach like New York, Washington, D.C., London, Dublin. Northern Ireland has a long way to go to achieve that standard or status of a cosmopolitan identity. It doesn't help when there is remarks being made about different groups and ethnic groups. People have misconceptions. People's knowledge of history and geography is extremely poor because they don't learn about other cultures and society. So it's a big challenge in the education sector. And I think DEL, Department of Education and Learning, universities like Queen's, Ulster, further colleges, need to reinforce the point of educating its citizens what is geography and history of the world. You cannot live, but no longer, you cannot live in an inward, insular way any further. Because if you want to be recognized as a global stage, you need to really put your act and work together in those areas.